I'd like to go ahead and turn it over to Paul Hagan from West Monroe Partners. Paul?
All for joining us today. I'm super excited to see as many of you on the line as there are. They're hoping to keep it interactive. I'm going to keep my section short so we can get to Kip, but do send questions in the IM chat window if you've got them along the way. So just want to give our context on voice of the customer. We see it as the engine. It is a foundation for any customer experience, any credible customer experience organization that, or in any company that's trying to pivot the customers and deliver better customer experiences. Find out voice of the customer program is the strategy, the processes, the people, the technology utilized to cap customer perceptions about an interaction within an organization. And more importantly, to drive improvement. It's not just about listening. A lot of problems that companies have is we're doing a lot of listening, we can't improve it. So we see a program as not just the technology, not just being the listening, but also driving that into the improvement. In fact, we see customer experience as a continuous improvement exercise. So voice of the customer may very well be used to define a high-level metric for customer experience, but we think the metric isn't as important as continuously improving, continuously listening to customers and driving improvements across the organization. We have methodology for continuously improving customer experience. We call deepen customer experience. And several stages of it, those become important for a voice of the customer program. First and foremost is the definition stage. What kind of experience are you trying to create? Are you trying to be a low-cost leader or to be a product leader? Because you listen to customers and who your target customers are, is very, very different. And what actions you take can depend on the customer who is calling in and what their expectations of you are. Voice is all about empathizing. It's what's the current state of the experience? What do customers think about us? How do they view our organization? How do they experience your organization? And we should do next. So of all of the things I'm listening to, what's important, what's not, what should my future be? How to prioritize those into a roadmap for change in the planning phase? And then finally enacting, prototyping, testing, measuring how we did at enabling the change. And voice of the customer can be a very, very powerful tool within the enact phase as well. Just a picture where Deepen helps us define an entire strategy and roadmap. Voice of the customer is really an empathize and into an envision exercise. It's about hearing the customers. It's about envisioning and planning what changes that we're making. It can also be involved in the enact phase where we're actually prototyping and trying to get feedback from customers. There's a lot of different tools that CX customer experience practitioners use. Voice of customer is one tool. Also in Empathize, we're using things like personas and journey maps, which are the visualization of customer research. We might be using innovation sprints, design thinking tool within the envision piece. We might use a portfolio management tool. Once a whole list of ideas, it doesn't mean to do all of those. No company has a budget to do everything that they entirely want to do. So prioritizing those based on both good for the company as well as customers care about them most are parts of the planning phase. A lot of tools, design thinking type tools to design customer experiences. So the customer is a powerful one, but it is really the signaling mechanism. It's telling me, hey, something is going wrong or something is going right with my customers. I ought to do more of that kind of stuff and gives me material to go do that with. The customer program, we see programs have really four essential components. Obviously, listening, gathering feedback from your customers and hearing what they think about you and what they think about doing business with you. But it doesn't stop there. Into analyzing. What customers say and what they mean can often be two very, very different things. So it's about analyzing what are they saying, what do they mean, what are the root causes of their becoming a promoter or their being a detractor of your organization. About reporting it out. to the rest of the organization. If it's just kept within an insights group, it doesn't really change across the company. So it's about reporting those insights to relevant staff members all through the level, whether that's front lines or in your operations. It could be your back office, or it could be up to the management and the level. And then acting on that. It's one thing to analyze and listen and report it out. It's another thing to have a governing body that will actually hold people accountable and prioritize actions and make sure that improvements are made. Good voice of the customer programs have all of these elements in them.
Yeah, and Paul, actually, we want to take this moment to open a poll for the audience. If you could go ahead and take a second to answer this question for us, we're curious to see, if you work at a utility, exactly what stage does your organization face the greatest challenges? And we have them there: listen, analyze, report, act, all the above, none of the above, or we don't currently have a VOC program. We'll go leave this open for about 15 to 20 more seconds just to get in.
It's going to be. I'll reserve it for a couple more seconds.
All right. I have about 25% are at as ACT. Challenge, yes.
Yeah, that's where I was going to put it. That's the acting part. It's easy to listen. It's easy to not always easy to analyze a report depending on what tools that you've got. But if you've got good tools, they can help you analyze and report it. Acting can be some of the most challenging pieces, not the technology. It's actually the governance and so forth. So lots of ways of listening to customers, and listening to customers has changed. Lots of new technologies. I think when Voice of the Customer program started out, it was all about surveys. But that has expanded into social media, into text mining, speech mining, online community panels, ethnographic research. Folks like Intel have 100 ethnographic researchers on staff. So lots of various different things, and there's various different learning that you can get from your Voice of the Customer program. First, it's what are they telling you? They're telling you, I like this, I like that. This was a bad experience, this was a good experience. Transiently focused feedback. There's also customers feel about you at the relationship level. So, you know, that one particular transaction might have been bad, but that doesn't necessarily mean how customers feel about you. They may still like you because what you filled on was something that was not important, but you got the basics, the brilliant basics right. So how customers feel about you, open-ended questions, social media, listening, mining can get into the sentiment of what customers are feeling. And most customer experience practitioners will tell you what customers say and what they do, or it can be very, very different things. And so observing customers, tracking their behavior in web and mobile areas, behavioral tracking through contact centers and in-store types of experiences. And a lot of places that you can collect data, and the problem tends to not be how to listen to them. It's really about reporting and making meaning and driving those into action. In terms of why companies are focused on customer experience, I think customer experience is a priority for many companies. But besides gain from Voice of the Customer programs can derive significant organizational results. And that's whether that's just improving that customer experience score because I've correlated that to the likelihood to buy again, or the likelihood, if word of mouth is important to your company, you want to understand what are people saying about you, how do they feel about you. It's about increasing that revenue through that word of mouth, the ability to cross-sell. If a customer doesn't like you, why would they be open to a message that you're cross-selling another product from another part of your organization? It's about enhancing that loyalty and reducing the churn. It's about acquiring new customers through that word of mouth, and it's decreasing customer costs, understanding the things that we do that customers don't care about, cause us extra costs because we're poorly, we've got a bad policy, we've got a bad process, we've designed our digital well, and they're contacting the contact center. That not only frustrates customers, but us money. The company's doing a lot of things to drive financial improvement through listening to the customer. So and I want to turn it over to Kip to talk about the work that they've done at implementing and gaining insights and starting to change the way they do business at KCWS. So Kip, I'll hand it over to you.
Yeah, just briefly, so we did open the poll for that question there of the benefits presented, which is most important for your organization. Actually, exactly 25% of the audience did answer that improving the experience and engagement is most important for their organization.
Fantastic. Good. I'll turn it over to you.
Good afternoon. I'm Kip Peterson. I'm the Communications Manager with Kansas City Water Services. While I'm here today speaking on behalf of KCWS, our customer program, which is really still in its infancy, it's about a year old. It's really a pretty team between our head of customer service, our head of IT, our head of meter field services, and the head of our call center as well. So it's definitely a key effort. Just to give you a quick snapshot of what we do, we are located in Kansas City, Missouri. We're a combined water, wastewater, and stormwater public utility. We've been in business since 1873, $350 million enterprise, 850 plus employees. We serve Kansas City, Missouri residents. The population is about 500,000. Of that, we have 170,000 residents and customers. And then we also serve customers which really are the suburbs of the Kansas City metro area. So 2 wholesale water and 27 wholesale waste customers. Before we had a Voice of the Customer program, we were relying on kind of 2 forms, 2 points really. We had a quarterly customer satisfaction survey where we sent out 600 to 400 residents each quarter, 100 a year, a total of about 36 questions. It provides some high-level public perception data, but oftentimes the folks that received the survey, they weren't necessarily our customers. They may not have had a recent interaction with us. And then because we are part of the city of Kansas City, Missouri, comment cards were mailed by City Hall to folks who had called the 311 Action Center. And those, the delay in getting those out, and so about how helpful that data was. So the primary that we faced on the next slide, we were uncertain these customers actually with us. We couldn't pinpoint the exact interaction touch point that the customer was referring to in their feedback. And, the feedback was fresh. The surveys weren't sent real time. We couldn't make informed decisions on process changes or improvements due to limited or missing feedback. And then it resulted kind of a stagnant experience with little to no changes towards improving the customer experience. If you go to the slide, really the solution for us was to establish the customer program, and we worked closely with West Monroe to get this going. And we selected a platform, and we did select Quadrants to measure customer satisfaction and effort. The first stage was to establish listening posts where our customers were. So we identified those posts or those touch points as our public website, the customer payment portal online, the call center, the phone system, the lobby. Folks come in, pay their bill, interact with us, and then also out in the field if we were house calls, changing out a meter, whatnot. We have folks go out and make house calls on a regular basis. enough to kind of turn on the listening post, our online listening post, 6 months prior to our new online payment portal. And as a result, the feedback we received helped us build and identify features that customers wanted to see for the upcoming portal and mobile app. It was clear, we received some great feedback. It was eye-opening. They wanted us to save their credit card and checking account information so they didn't have to retype it each month. They wanted us to simplify the sign-up process for automatic monthly payments. A big one was, hey, reduce the number of clicks it takes just to get into my account. And one thing, too, was interesting. There were customers, if they got up early, they were early birds, wanted to pay their bill at 6 a.m. I couldn't do so because of some automated backup processes, and that's something we just weren't aware of, that it was a problem with customers. So the feedback really did help identify that and then allowed us to fix that. They wanted to add payment arrangements options too, which we did add. And then, being part of the city, it really affirmed that customers expected the online options offered by other local utilities. So customers really didn't view us as just a city department. They viewed us as the same way they do the electric company or the gas company, the other, and send them a bill each month. So that was very eye-opening. On the next slide, it shows basically kind of our data. So this is customer effort and data across those 5 touch points for the past 11 months. On a scale, and it measures on a scale of 0 to 5 being the highest, and so we want to definitely be in that 3 to 5 range. That the blue box is is it easy with us, and then green is very easy. So we'd like to definitely be in the green. And it was pretty telling as you look at the trend data too. The dip in the online experience, that bottom blue line, was our go-live date for the new payment portal, and did experience some issues. Customers were having a hard time logging in. Some passwords didn't migrate over to the new system, and the feedback and just the data we were receiving definitely, it pointed out. We continued to experience issues in September and October, which really led us, the feedback we received, to create an online help desk in October so we could more quickly assist customers who were having issues. And once we did that, you can see that trend line start to slowly increase again. It's been on a slow upward trajectory ever since. If you look at the slide with satisfaction, direct correlation between effort and satisfaction. So you'll see the same type of dips right there, August, September, October. So as it's more difficult for customers to get online and pay their bill, that really decreased their satisfaction with us. They were not happy, and that it definitely is displayed in this graph, which is pretty impressive. On the side, just elaborating on the relationship between satisfaction and effort, specifically each interaction type, and the correlation coefficient between those 2 lines. And if you look at the bottom, as close to 1 as you can. I think the average among all of them is 0.7, which reflects kind of a strong, positive, uphill, relationship between effort and satisfaction. So it's a reminder for us that, if we can do everything we can to reduce the amount of effort for customers to make it easier to do business with us, there's going to be a correlating increase in their satisfaction. If you go to the next slide, high-level results, just, in the 11 months of data we have, we've received over 19,000 completed surveys. Of those, probably 40% of our customers are taking the time to answer an open-ended feedback question, providing, specific comments about, what we're doing right, what we're wrong, how we can improve. We just, monthly voice of the customer team meetings. Again, the owners of each interaction or touch point are represented. We report out to leadership each month, to City Hall as well. And also incorporated kind of the monthly numbers and trends into the employee-facing digital signage or big TV monitors that are scattered throughout the building. And it's really overall the process has given a second chance to resolve customer issues, which has been amazing. And also, it's given an opportunity to recognize positive employee performance as well. But really, again, the thing I want to stress is it's looking at the data. It's eye-opening. The relation between reduced effort and increased satisfaction.
Thanks, Kip. As we mentioned in the beginning, we wanted to make this very conversational. So we'll go ahead and just start taking some questions right now from the audience. Feel free to get your questions into the Q&A box. And turn it over to Tom Holzabosh. He's going to go through some of the questions we've received so far, and we can have a conversation around those with the team, Kip and Paul.
Yeah, Kip, I got a question for you while people are sending in their Q&A, right? One is, 18,000 surveys. That's a lot.
It is a lot. It is a lot.
So, what those surveys coming in? What's the one is how do you get through it all? And two is how do you provide feedback to your customers that are sending in that information that you're hearing them?
Yeah, it's a wealth of data. We've had no shortage of survey responses. I think part of that is that we've made the survey very easy to complete. In the case of the online survey, it's 7 questions. It's 3 questions related to effort, 3 related to satisfaction, and then the 7th is kind of that open-ended. Would you like to provide any additional comments regarding your experience or Kansas City Water Services in general? Looking at other surveys, some online surveys we found, were 40, 50 questions. So I imagine that the completion of those surveys is pretty low, where our completion rate's like 97% overall. So it's resulted in a lot of completed surveys. As far as what's nice about the Qualtrics platform that we're using is that the data automatically populates into a digital dashboard, so we don't have to manually go through that data. Now, the one we have learned as far as the open-ended feedback, we've had over 8,000 comments. We did not anticipate that number, and we are adding now a text analytics piece so that can go in there. Right now we have to look at it manually, either weekly, monthly, and kind of pull out the trends manually, but this text analytics piece will do it automatically for us. So, and then the thing we've added too is, as we receive surveys, it was, our very customer focused and wanted to solve issues that customers identified, but survey tool was anonymous unless customer self-identified. So we went back in and added, a disclaimer just saying, hey, your feedback is purely anonymous, but if you'd like us to follow up, please, provide your name, contact information, account number, et cetera. So that's given us a great opportunity to a second chance to help customers as well and follow up with them.
That's awesome. It's a pretty interesting.
I was going to say it's interesting that you have only 7 questions and then making all of that other information optional. I've seen any number of surveys where they make you fill out your name and address and a lot of information before you actually fill out a survey. Some tip, across the organization, who's been most, a lot of data there. Who's most eager to see it across the organization?
So far it's been kind of the owners of each touch point. So, the center manager, he's anxious to look at that data, and he does so on a daily basis. As we've, as he has launched, and collecting with communications, the new site and new portal, we've both been, the IT director and myself, both been anxious to see those numbers and, going back up after, a couple stumbles at the beginning of launching that new portal. So really right now it's the owners of each touch point. We are we are gradually getting, leadership to pay more and more attention to the as well. So I know the director, first every month we send out the report, and today he was really taking an interest in the numbers, which is great to see.
Hear from the audience, Kip, for you. Around the customer experience KPIs, Kristen Murphy wants to understand what are some of the metrics that you use to measure customer experience.
Well, right now, there's a 5-point scale, and so we basically, if you go back to those charts, want the numbers to be, definitely above. So 3 to 4 would be satisfied, or 5 would be very satisfied. So we want to make, and we've got a color-coded that well. So we want to see as many blues and greens as possible. And so each month, if we see anything down, we dig into those comments to try to figure out, okay, what may be causing that. So again, our program is in its infant. We have 11 months worth of data, and all of our numbers are in the blue and green, and they're slowly moving into the green, and that's where we want to see them.
Sounded like you're using both customer effort and CSAT as your kind of core metrics, not something like a Net Promoter Score or Forrester's Customer Experience Index or Temkin Index.
That's correct. We're in a unique position too, because we, at a public utility, really a monopoly, we're not into increase sales per se. Customers, they turn on their tap, it's our product. They flush the toilet, it comes to us. They don't have another service option, so we are really focused on just trying to make it the best experience possible for them when they do business with us.
And extending the voice of the customer to your internal employees to measure satisfaction between internal customers.
So we have we have not envisioned that. We have another HR every year. They do a pretty comprehensive employee satisfaction survey that's pretty in depth, and they use an outside polling firm to do that work. So we've not envisioned utilizing the tool internally yet, but it's something that, as we get more comfortable with this program, we might pursue.
Okay. Here's an interesting one, and so it'd be interesting to see how you answer this as really a public utility. So with this program, I'm sure there was an increase to operating expense to implement the program. Have you realized a revenue increase or some type of ROI, and how did you measure that?
Yeah, it's a great question. We've talked more about the between adding more self-service options for customers, more online options. If we can do that, enhance that online experience and self-service experience, then it will result in call deflection to the call center, and I think there are some savings and efficiencies to be realized there. And we just launched a new mobile app last week, so we are bringing more and more options online for customers. So I think if we see any sort of efficiencies, it's going to be as customers get more comfortable, more tech savvy, want to do more business online. That would result in fewer phone calls, maybe fewer in-person lobby visits. So I think at some point in time we'll see some sort of efficiency in that regard.
Yeah, it's also pretty encouraging too, is that very high correlation between the low customer effort and high customer satisfaction. So it seems like as we go more digital, and we get that well, right? We have to execute it well. It seems like we kind of get that ROI and we get that higher CSAT score, which is kind of cool. Hey, guys, you, Paul. So being the customer experience specialist here, what would you describe as an ideal voice of the customer program? What would that look like? like?
First off, it has a lot of different listening programs. So, you know, and I think, you know, the fact that you've got a short survey with some open-ended questions so customers can use their own words, I think is a, you know, fantastic. I think, you know, social media listening, whether it's a B2B, more of a business-to-business or commercial environment, as well as a business-to-consumer environment. There's a lot of, you know, people out there, and they're talking about you. They're rating and reviewing. A lot of feedback to gather out there. You know, and I think there are more qualitative types of way. Customer panels. Some of the technologies enable you to create customer panels to get back on a particular item before it launches and so forth. So I think there's some interest around listening that I always look for, the maturity. I think then you know, it gets into you know, the acting piece. I think is a tricky piece for a lot of folks. You know, I think the basics are you know, what you heard Kip talk about. People wanted to follow up, so that's known as a closed loop process with detractors, in particular, in trying to fix the problems happening. The more sophisticated companies are actually doing both closed loop with detractors, but then also promoters. If I've got people who we've reserved well, and they're promoting me, enabling those folks and encouraging them to be my spokespeople out in social media is incredibly powerful. And so people are setting up closed loop with those folks and doing some enablement. Companies and Intuit had actually, you know, their customers willing to give you feedback. They've established a customer panel through which project and product managers at any given point in time can request to go engage with customers around a process redesign or a new product, and within 2 to 4 days have customers assigned to them to get feedback in the prototyping and the development of various different applications. Sophisticated and hard to do, but man, when you want to do customer research before you launch something out, you know, having a whole group of folks already available into can be incredibly powerful. And then I think analytics. You know, I think everyone's playing around with the predictive side of things of, you know, what's driving my customer experience up and down? If I do certain things, what will that do to my customer experience scores and driving those up? And you know, so I look at analytics both at identifying customers really care about, what not just correlates with, but has some sort of causation of that customer experience score, and then driving that to financials, driving to how I allocate resources. Companies spend lots and lots of money fixing things. Great example of an airport problem was baggage claim. All of their complaints were about how long it took to get bags. And they put a Lean Six Sigma type of team on it, cut them in half, and the complaints stayed exactly the same. You know, this is customers, right? It's customer perception. And so what they realized that customers were, you know, only taking a minute to get to the baggage claim, but they were waiting for 7 minutes. An unoccupied waiting time, customers perceive longer than occupied waiting time. And so what they did was, if they had people walk for 7 minutes and just wait for 1, so they rerouted people to the baggage claim, all of the complaints went away. Very, very interesting to tap into, you know, what customers' perceptions are, and you know, there's a boatload of behavioral economics out there that you know, again, analytics can start getting you into the behaviors and the mindsets of customers and what they care about.
I love this too.
Fun.
Here's for you, Kip. So, explain a little bit, you know, between the roles of quality assurance and how they play in potentially getting this data and improving your processes. I guess this kind of gets at continuous improvement. How do you do that within KCWS?
I guess how do we this data kind of on a monthly, and then ensure that we're following through on what customers are doing or asking us to do?
if you will, kind of the quality assurance function, right, within KC Water, right? What role do they play? And this gets around a bit of that governance, I think, of how you take that data and analyze it. Maybe you can kind of explain a little bit of the team that's involved in this.
Yeah, and again, we've been for 11 months now, and it seems like each month we have to do it or figure out, here's something we should have been doing that we haven't been. So we're definitely learning as we go. But the process was to bring each touch point together on a monthly basis. So the first every month, I will go through and pull last month's data and put the analysis together, look at the overall numbers, both as as a whole, but then for each touch point. And I'll send that out. Folks will look at the comments that they've received. We'll analyze those, and then we'll meet the following week. And, we'll spend an hour or so going through, okay, what are the trends this month? Okay, it went down with point. Do we know why? The comments have been great because you will see some sort of pattern develop, and all of a sudden, customers having one particular thing, so then you can dig into it. And so we've got basically kind of a rolling list of accomplishments that we add to each month. Here are the things that customers have identified, and here are the things that we fixed. The slide of just general observations for the survey as a whole, but then also for each touch point. So, if the feedback from the lobby is, man, the wait time is way too long, then we've got to figure out, okay, is this a staffing issue? Is it a process issue? Whatnot. And so we continue to work on this month. And then, we've established a to-do list. So, for example, some recent data or feedback we've been getting is, hey, the signing up for the auto bill pay process, it takes too long to go into effect. So we've had a number of meetings internally. Can we speed up that paperwork process internally? So really, it's a matter of formalizing that process and then holding each other accountable. And I think the monthly reporting has done a great job of doing that. But it was a struggle to get everyone together at the beginning. But now we've been doing it for 11 months, and folks have really bought in. And we've seen like I said, we have an accomplishment list. So we've seen a lot of things that we've been able to check off that have resulted in increased action and reduced effort for customers. So it's been a fun process.
Cool. Question here, and maybe this kind of fits into what you just were talking about around what advocacy metrics do you use if you don't use Net Promoter Score? How else do you evaluate customer satisfaction, if you will? You still do your surveys, right? That you did beforehand. So maybe you can talk a little bit about that.
I mean, basically, we measure customer satisfaction in two different ways. One is through this Voice of the Customer program, which allows us to measure for the department as a whole, as well as each individual touch point. But then, the other thing I referred to earlier was, for years now, we've been doing a quarterly customer satisfaction survey, and the firm that does that work for us also do nationwide polling and surveying of utilities across the country, specifically in the water business. So we were able to look at our numbers for the water utility, the wastewater utility, and the stormwater utility, as well as customer service. And we're able to look at those numbers each quarter, annually, and then the cool thing with that survey is it gives us a comparison. So all the other water utilities in the KC metro area happen to use the same firm. So we're able to compare and benchmark our improvement and our numbers to the other area utilities as well as to other utilities our size around the country. So between that customer satisfaction survey and the VIA program, it's some really good data for us.
Interesting. There's another question here that's asking, where do you rank in J.D. Power? I don't think you guys do J.D. Power. I think that this particular that you're talking about is you compare yourself to other utilities, correct?
That's correct, yeah.
And can I ask, it's up to you to answer, where do you rank?
As far as the utilities are concerned,
How
our
are you
numbers,
guys doing?
I mean, we've seen tremendous improvement over the last 3 years. We under leadership changes, we had a 2-year customer service improvement project that you led. It resulted in the numbers across the board have gone up as the utility has changed from kind of a slow-moving organization to a more utility-focused and more customer-focused and even data-driven organization. So the improvements that we made, the processes we've changed have been reflected in the survey data. So, nationwide, as far as other utilities our size, our numbers are above average. There's some great utilities here in the KC metro area that have been kind of posting for great customer service. And now, when I talk to the directors of the other utilities, when I see them at meetings, they point out that, man, I saw your numbers last quarter, and you guys are doing great. And I think it makes them nervous that we're on their heels now. Customer service is definitely moving in the right direction, but thankfully too, we've always had a great product. Our tap water is the best in the country. So as far as the survey data regarding our product, it's always been fantastic, which is fortunate.
Hey, Kip, I'm curious to go back. Judith is asking some questions that get into culture. You had talked about people being eager to both look at the reports and really follow back. Talk a little bit about the culture that's around it. Does the transparency start improving the culture? Are you planning? Do you already have some level of accountability that we've got numbers and we're expecting all of our different channels and parts of the organization to apply with those numbers? Can you talk a bit about that?
Fortunately, the owner of each touch point has been, they were all intimately involved in kind of the long customer service improvement projects. So they've bought in early on and been working on that, and they've seen the improvements, and the improvements wouldn't have been possible without them. And so they're no questioning their dedication to using that data and using it to enhance the customer experience. There's more organization-wide. Officers are doing it. It's something new. In any kind of municipal organization, change comes slowly. But we've been reporting out more and more often. We've been taking it down to City Hall, sharing it with the City Council, sharing it with the Mayor, the City Manager. They're buying into the numbers. And then also, as I mentioned, these large T monitors as kind of strategically placed throughout the headquarters building, and those numbers now flash up there each month. So we're disseminating the info, far and wide at this point. So we, folks, especially the owners of each touch point, really take in those numbers. And so if you see a big dip in a month, they get big, and it's like, okay, what can we do to turn that trend back around? So, but again, we're 11 months into it, and but right, the process and the buy-in, as far as I'm concerned,
challenging.
Probably just the amount of data we've gotten, and on the open feedback, we have so many comments that and that adding the text analytics piece is to better make that process of going and identifying trends within the comments. So that's been a piece. But I think challenging. It was challenging at the beginning to come with some sort of formal process, regular process and procedure to dig it, to analyze it. But once we got going now, we're kind of on autopilot, and each month we're digging stuff and we're meeting, and it's been very positive.
Hey, question for you on some of the logistics on how you implemented this. One person's asking the question of how do you get customers to use the online survey form, and what's your method of delivery? A little bit about that.
Yeah. So online, you're on our website. Essentially, it's one of those what often referred to as annoying pop-ups or pop-unders that appear after you close out the page. So, it's a link that you click and takes you to the survey. And then we also, once you've logged into the payment portal, there's kind of a static feedback link as well. The customer can always click on and provide feedback. And what we saw online was when we turned something post on, super eager to provide feedback. So we saw a huge spike in comments and surveys completed at the beginning. But then as they had a chance to share thoughts, they're doing it as frequent anymore. But we're still receiving definitely regular comments from each interaction type. And then as far as calls us, if we go out to customers' home to do some work, basically we've automated the process that within 24 to 48 hours they will receive an email inbox with a link to the survey. And until we toyed around with do we do some sort of mailing or postcard, but all the data indicated that customers were more likely to fill out or respond to an email than something they receive physically in the mail.
Gotcha. Got a question here, and the voice of the customer process and how it correlates to the quality assurance process to drive employee performance improvements. This is around the quality service management stuff. Mm-hmm. If you can comment to that.
Head of customer service was here. She could. Quality assurance side. There's a quality assurance person in the call center that basically listens to phone calls, grades phone calls, whatnot, but really just that's out of my realm of expertise. I would be hesitant to try to guess.
I know that we implemented a pretty comprehensive quality service management program. You guys are already doing it in your contact center, so we kind of expanded that. And then we also, around services, around the billing, and around the credits and collections, we are looking at the interactions and looking at how well people are following the process, and really how well they're executing the job. So what was pretty cool about this is KC Water took a very holistic approach on customer experience, from sure that we're doing a very holistic voice of the customer program, but we're also looking at the things that impact that customer program. So how well are the employees trained? How well do they feel empowered to do their job, right? So the quality assurance process that was created really helped ensure that. So ongoing and sustainable, making sure that the employees that are doing the job have the right training, right? Again, that feedback as well to update the training for everyone from the meter to cash process. So really a pretty comprehensive program that KC did to create this sustainable, continuous improvement culture. So pretty cool.
Hey, I've got a question. Kristen's asked this a couple of times, and I think it hasn't quite been answered. You've talked a lot about, hey, there was one of your big challenges was about data. And, once you got through the formal process and so forth, you've got it up. But there's communications, there's this integration and the training. What's your voice of the customer team look like today? And if if the world were your oyster, what kind of skills would you have available on it?
Well, it's comprised of our head of customer service, oversees, the call center, billing, meter field services, really everything that's customer focused. Also, of IT, so the person who really knows the ins and outs of all the online bill pay processes and just all the billing processes as well. We've got the call center who sees that, and then also who oversees kind of the audio voice system as well, and also the lobby. And then we have the head of our meter field services division as well, who oversees all the guys who are out there making house calls. So it's the folks or the members of the team have, as they're going through the data and they're reading the comments, that they have the ability to enact change as a result of what they. So you have folks who can, have authority and the power to go in, whether it be to visit with an employee who's been identified as either, a good example of customer service or a bad example of customer service, or, type complaints like, hey, why isn't this process quicker, why isn't it easier? And so then, it's important the folks at the table, the customer team can actually go in and tweak that process and make decisions that result in customer effort and increased customer satisfaction. Does that get to your question?
That's interesting, because that I would describe as like your steering committee and kind of your governance body for doing that. There's a side of it which is, do you have a dedicated set of staff who are doing the analytics, who might be involved in doing communications out? Is there a dedicated, running the voice of the customer, the Qualtrics stuff, dedicated customer experience, or voice of the customer team?
Yeah, it's a team of one, and that team is me. So as we expand the program, maybe we add individuals or pull individuals in that can better dice the data than I can. But right now, I'm a lucky one, and it's not something I envisioned as part of my communications role, but it's eye-opening, and it's been fantastic, and I'm glad to be a part of it.
Not alone. I've heard people talk about them being a department of two with $2, and I see people definitely expand from a couple folks to getting some business analysts to actually getting Six Sigma teams reporting up into them, so that the projects that spin out can kind of go into those kinds of groups. A culture change in communications, as these things get bigger and are starting to tap into kind of the internal communications piece and internal training. So I can see those teams expanding definitely as that program matures.
Hey, got a couple of questions here for you. You can probably answer these together. What prompted the creation of your customer improvement program? And then number two, do you tell your commissioners, your oversight board, so in your case, really the city council, right, what your progress is? Yeah,
a couple of years ago, when the team came on board, started looking at the old customer experience, it was clear that we weren't getting actionable data or feedback from our customers. We had the high-level customer satisfaction survey, and some cards that were sent out by City Hall, but really we were able to hearing from our customers directly in any sort of organized fashion. So that's what led to the creation of the VOC program. And we have just, within the past year, we have a formal process for kind of reporting out progress, specifically as in customer service downtown to the city manager and to the mayor, city councils. So what I've been doing and what we've been doing here is adding to those presentations that come from our VOC program. So here are our numbers, here are our trends, here's what we've discovered, here's what we've fixed, here are things that customers would like to see. That it's interesting being part of a larger city bureaucracy. Some things that our customers want, we actually can't provide due to other citywide contracts that get in the way. So it has made a case for additional flexibility as a utility, just because we are so different from other city departments. But we have begun reporting to downtown on our numbers, and I know the director yesterday said, hey, he wanted to update the nation committee that we do a lot of work with on this program in particular. So I'm putting together another presentation for later in the month.
Oh, cool. Yeah, I've got a question for another question for you, Kip, and maybe also I think Miguel may be on the as well. Was a question around the implementation of Qualtrics. What was the hardest part about the implementation of the technology behind your Voice of the Customer program?
Miguel's on the line. I'll gladly throw over to him.
I think a lot was just identifying the data that we were going to capture. You know, when we started this effort, didn't really have all the emails, addresses from our customers, and there was an effort in customer service to start getting that information. Once we started gathering that information, we started writing our queries to go ahead and look at the work and the type of information we were getting from all the touch points, whether it was IVR, field services, service orders, the customer just make contact through the billing system, data together to go over to Qualtrics so we could send them the surveys, the appropriate survey. And depending on the panel, we send them the appropriate survey that was designated for them. Great.
Miguel, for everyone else, Miguel's the Director of IT in KCWS.
I have her with me too. She's for the customer service area. She's our director there. I don't know.
Well, just that we did have. It was going to be email, as Kip said. That was going to be our best, getting some good and quantifiable results. And so we ran a pretty good campaign in the call center to increase that number, and we increased it by tens of thousands. I think the number of emails we actually have on file, just not only to have it, but also to just really number of people who had the opportunity to respond to us. And so that involved the contest and all those sort of corny things that call centers do, but we had huge success with the call reps and coming to the table and delivering those numbers in numbers that I never dreamed we'd be able to do. So that was a logistical part in the call center that became pretty important as far as being able to roll the thing out. So I just did want to double back on some of the comments earlier on call center, and more particularly as it drills down to each individual employee. So I think Tom referenced the QA program that we have, and of course the Voice of the Customer information is part of that. I mean, we had a whole criteria built out on reviewing a call and reviewing a clerical transaction, and we are up and running in that program now. And it's something we're pretty happy about and pretty proud of. But obviously this data from Voice of the Customer delves into that, allows us to drill down to the situation and either recognize or coach performance that needs to be recognized in either way. So that's the connection for us, kind of on an individual employee level with the data on the surveys.
Great, thank you, Kathy. Unfortunately, we are out of time. There is the contact information there for Kip, Paul, and Tom. So if you have any additional questions, feel free to pick up the phone and give them a call or send them an email. I will go ahead and we'll send around the deck as well as the recording of this webinar. And I want to thank everyone again for joining us today, and enjoy the rest of your day. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.